everyone, it's Rick Passek, FlyFish Fanatic, and welcome to my tying bench. It is late September here in Alberta, well, everywhere. Duh. But BC right now, and the whole west coast of the west coast of Canada and North America, Canada, U.S., Alaska. Um, it is salmon time, and they're starting to get to that point where they're well, not starting, but they're already there for a while, but really getting there for that rotting stage where chunks of flesh and chunks of skin and chunks of that kind of stuff are floating down the river, and salmon and other things will feed on this, and so will bigger trout and all kinds of other creatures. So I am going to show you guys a flesh fly. Now this pretty simple fly. It's basically a leech, but it's large. This one's a really big one. I tie these anywhere from about a 1/0 down to a size 6. This one is a size 4 or size 2, sorry. Big Predator Mustad hook. So yeah, fairly simple fly. Just got to be a little bit patient. That's all. So get going. It's a big hook. So you can see how big this is. Big gap, which I really like for salmon. Um, so I'm going to start off with some. Hopefully, I've got enough white thread on there, but I'm pretty sure I do. So we'll find out. I don't want to really use a highlight color, so it's fine. So just going to start my thread. This is Semperfli Nano Silk 12/0. Just going to go back to just prior to the tip of my thread. I'm going to be using two different colors of Marabou. This one here is a kind of a light orangey, fleshy kind of. It's more skin tone, and then I'm going to also use this little bit brighter one, and sometimes I even use the orange as well, but a little bit of both. So I'm going to start off with the skin tone one, the closest one to skin tone. It was the first one I showed you. It's got a little bit of more pinky in it, but pull that out. So I'm just going to find one with the nice long, the longest fibers I can find. That's not too stiff. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to just take this really heavier under fluff and um, where the stem is really thick. You see how thick that stem is there, right? I don't want that because I'm going to be palmering this forward. So I'm just getting to where I know this shouldn't hurt the stem won't break. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to find the very tip of my Marabou here. And I'm just going to tie that in by the very tip here. Again, all this is covered, so it doesn't really matter. But so, and now it's just a matter of stroking this material back and coming forward just right on top of each other until you start getting a little bit of material there. And now I'll just slowly come forward here. Okay, and as I come forward, if I see any trapped ones, I'm going to take my little brush, just brush this out. If there's anything trapped, stroke it back as much as possible. Come forward, stroke it back, come forward. Like I said, it's just got to be a little bit of patience with this because sometimes this Marabou doesn't want to act the way you want it to act. I don't know if you guys can see me on the screen, but I don't think you can. But wetting my fingers as I go, and it just helps control the Marabou just a little bit. So I just wet my fingers a little just to try to keep that stuff from keep it cooperating with me. So now you can make these flesh flies in many different patterns, many different ways. Um, you can build an underbody. I like actually using the mobster chenille from Semperfli as well as an underbody, and it'll just help thicken this a bit because this will slick down pretty well, right? Once this gets wet. So again, just bring this all the way forward until you run out of material. Tighten that down on top of it and in front of it. Cut that off. Now it looks like thread right now, but that's again because a bunch of the material's been caught. So now I'm just going to go in there with my little brush here, just make sure I get out any of those marabou fibers that got caught. Sometimes you got to be a little bit aggressive. Like I can see there's a few that got jammed right at the back there that obviously I didn't get before. Just get aggressive if you have to. If that doesn't work, you can use a pin as well or a bodkin and just get in there and like I know right there, there's a bit that just doesn't want to brush out. There we go. There we go. It was caught underneath there. So now, there we go. That's much better. This will breathe a little bit better that way too, right? That's stage one. Now we'll take the slightly more orange. Now I could just go with another one of the same color, but this time I'm going to go with one that's just a little bit more orange. Barely, but a little bit. Same thing. I'm just going to get rid of that underfluff portion of it that I don't want. That's the thicker part of the stem. Tie this in. Bring up my stem. Like I said, this is barely more orange than the last, but it is ever so slightly. Just the other one's got a bit of a pink hue to it. This one's got a bit of an orange hue to it. So, but almost impossible to tell the difference. But it is that just slight difference. Once it's on top, you'll see that it is different. You see already? It's got just that little bit of a different color. I'll just bring this forward, bring it forward. Now, if you want, you can, in between these layers, in between the feathers, you can put in a piece or two of crystal flash just to give it a little bit of zing to it, just as an attractor. But I've honestly, I've done both and I've never really noticed a difference in success rate between one with and one without crystal flash. It's more, I think, that's more for the tire than it is for the fish. But it is what it is. You do whatever you feel like doing. Again, same thing. Just going to give this a brush out, make sure that nothing's trapped. That one really flowed really well, but you can see the difference in color, right? Between the two. Now I'm actually going to go back to the first color. Grab another one, another feather. Now this, there is a few things you can do with this. You can just do a simple flesh fly like this. Like I said, you can add some flash into it if you want. Don't add flash, it's up to you. And you can go just like I'm doing here, no weight, and have your fly line act as your overall weight. Or you can add a set of dumbbell eyes here or a bead or whatever you want. Just change it up to the water that you're fishing because sometimes having a bead, having something heavy just doesn't, it's just not conducive to the water you're fishing. So you got to just do it the way that will work for your water body. I know I really like fishing these in the lower mainland Vancouver area. I like fishing these on the Stave River, the Harrison, that kind of stuff. In the Fraser, when I'm wanting to fish some of those areas, I'll actually put a little bit of extra weight on it, whether that's an underbody lead weight or bead chain eyes or dumbbells. That's all depends on, again, on the water, on the current, and on the line I'm using. Just, like I said, just be patient, keep on going around, make sure that it's nice and full. You want these as full as possible. That's why I'm nice and tight up against the last, constantly nice and tight up against the last, almost overlapping the last layer. Put that down. Now have room for one more feather. Go back to the lighter one after I brush out. Sure nothing's stuck. There is one there. Stuck under a bit. I want a little bit on the tight brush. Help it out. There we go. Let's start. There we go. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of playing around with these. I probably could have paid. I actually just pulled it out. Could have probably paid a little bit more attention when I was wrapping. So I'm just peeling a bit more off because I have to tie this down again. I pulled it out, so just to make sure. There we go. So it's tied down nice. Sure that's brushed out nice. And then I'm going to go back to that little slightly brighter one. That's a little too short, that one. I could even, if I wanted to, go even brighter with that brighter orange, like this one here, right? But I find that that's just a little bit too much color. Um, so see if I've got another decent one in this package. Yeah, this one should do. It's a fairly old pack of Marabou, so I don't buy a lot of these flesh flies anymore, and this color because, well, I don't live in the Lower Mainland anymore, so buy a lot of them. But I think now with my move down to Mexico and other places, I'll probably be using this color a bit, these colors a little bit more again because they're kind of cool, and a lot of the tropical patterns actually call for similar colors. So just last couple of little winds here, just get this nice and bushy. I think I just stop there for a second, brush that out because I was noticing I was starting to get hooked up. Like I said, you could. There's all kinds of things you could do with these. You could put little heads on them, weight, no weight. The plastic heads, like the soft heads from Stoneful, um, any of that kind of stuff you can put on as well. Just to build up, just have a little bit of a head there. But I like just doing it with like this because I like controlling my fly's descent with the fly line of choice, right? So sink tip or whatever. And that's usually what I do use with this is a sink tip of some sort, whether depending on the water, whether it's a slow sink or a fast sink. I do anything from a type 1 all the way to a type 6 sink tip. I again prefer shorter sink tips I usually stick within 3 to 5 feet in my sink tips, but sometimes you got to go a little longer. But I find the like the 15 footers and stuff a little bit just a little harder to manage. So one set of whip finishes, obviously I'll come back and do my head cement on these 2 sets, and I'll do a third set here. And I could, if I wanted to, go with a like a bright orange or something like that here, just as a little bit of a hot spot head. And quite often I'll actually do that. And then I'll just finish brushing this out. Like I said, fairly simple flash fly, and that will pulsate and it'll move, have lots of movement, look like a piece of flesh, piece of rotting flesh floating down. And there's tons. Sorry guys, I'm just trying to adjust that for you. I don't know why the so kind of reflective. There we go. That's a little bit better. Turn the light down a little bit more. Yeah, that's it. And it's like lots of movement in these flies, lots of breathing. So they'll pulsate, they'll breathe. Like I said, you can put a little bit of crystal flash through it a little bit if you want just a little bit of flash in it. And that's about it. Super, super simple. Um, Super simple fly to tie. You can tie the same thing in with black and reds and stuff like that, and use them for steelhead and for salmon and trout and other stuff as well, just with different colors. Just not a flesh fly. Then the reason this is called a flesh fly is just purely because of the color. That rotting, whitey, reddy kind of. If you ever seen rotting salmon carcasses and stuff, they definitely got that real whitey kind of grossy um, kind of color to them, and that's why. And a lot of times these this other salmon and steelhead and big trout and stuff like that will target the chunks of flesh, right? And so will like big pike minnows and a bunch of other a bunch of other um, fish. So um, they're like I said, simple fly, very effective, work very well, and yeah, fun to tie at times. I like I said, and I will add some flash to some, and I will add some weight to some. So there you go, done, done, done. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, simple fly, very effective. Salmon, steelhead, but this definitely works best in the fall after the salmon have finished their spawning or are getting to the end of their spawning, and all those rotting carcasses are coming down. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Timelines, everyone.